This is a presentation on the new technology of a regenerative peripheral nerve interface prosthetic hand and its FDA approval strategy. So 1.7 million people currently live with limb loss just in the United States, and of those people, 41,000 people have upper extremity amputations. And phantom limb pain is actually the most common post-amputation problem, and that occurs in 40 to 80% of all amputees. Phantom limb pain is pain that the nervous system recognizes as coming from the limb that is no longer there. And prostheses have actually been found to decrease severity and frequency of phantom pain, and the more motor function that the prosthetic restores, the less frequent the pain has been shown to be. Current prosthetic limb technologies include cosmetic, body-powered, myoelectric, and hand transplants. So cosmetic prostheses are just for show. They're non-functional and they're not very secure due to the constantly atrophying muscles. And then body-powered prostheses are controlled through a harness with several cables, but they don't move very fluidly and they don't have fine motor movements. Myoelectric prosthetics have electrodes that pick up muscle impulses from the amputation site. They have a lack of sensory feedback and controllability due to muscle atrophy. And then hand transplants, they can restore function and they look really good, but there's also a really short period of time for there to be a surgery, and it can take a long time to find a match for a hand. There's also extensive recovery time and physical therapy. So this technology is built around a regenerative nerve interface, and that revolves around muscle grafts, which are pieces of muscle that are taken from one part of the body and moved to the site of injury. So the muscle graft in this case is taken from the ipsilateral vastus lateralis, which is in the inner thigh, and it's moved to the amputation site on either the elbow, the wrist, or the shoulder. And usually nerves from this amputation site would form neuromas, which are balls of big nerves that can cause pain. They can be almost 2 centimeters in diameter, and they're shown on the picture on the right. They actually grow into this muscle graft that is transplanted and they innervate it. And this has been found to amplify nerve electrical signals by a factor of 100, which helps the prosthetic electrodes pick up the signals at the site of amputation. So this creates the clear, distinct signals for the prosthetic. So the algorithm and the device itself, the algorithm is actually able to differentiate several different nerve signals, and it can sort out which signals are connected to specific hand and finger movements to bring back those fine motor skills. The prosthetic is also custom fitted to improve comfort, and surface electromyography electrodes are placed at the amputation site, and they translate those electrical signals in your muscles to an actual robotic movement just by the user thinking of the movement that they want their arm to do. So some advantages and disadvantages of this new device. It only has to be recalibrated every 300 days for 15 minutes. Most current devices take about 2 hours a day for calibration, so that's a really big improvement. The hand also moves in less than 0.3 seconds after the signal is read, so it's a very fluid and natural movement. It restores fine motor movement. Study participants could actually tie their shoes or zip up a jacket. They have reduced instances and severity of phantom limb pain. And it's also not a time-sensitive device, so the graft can be moved right after amputation or many years later with those fully formed neuromas, and the nerves will actually innervate the muscle graft regardless. However, it does take 12 weeks for the graft to be fully innervated, so it does take a while for the device to actually work. And the device is currently extremely heavy and has to be connected to a computer, so those are the improvements they're looking at doing right now. So this would be classified as a device through the FDA because it is intended for the use in the diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease in man, but it's not through chemical action. And that means that any device applications or pre-market notifications would go through the Center for Devices and Radiological Health. It would also most likely be classified as a Class 2 device. It has a medium risk to the user, and similar devices currently on the market are also Class 2. Therefore, a 510K is the preferred method, so that requires a predicate device with substantially equivalent technology, special controls including clinical trials, and you must also submit an investigative device exemption before those clinical trials. So an investigative device exemption is most likely already submitted for this device since it's already in clinical trials, but basically this proves that good clinical practices are followed. There's an IRB registered with the FDA, and this requires that all informed consent must be recorded, and procedures, results, and statistical analyses will all be included in the 510K. So the substantially equivalent device on the market is the DECA arm system. It was approved in 2012 as a Class 2 device through the de novo process. It's an upper extremity prosthesis. It uses the same surface EMG electrodes to translate the robotic arm movements. It uses the same lithium-ion batteries and has identical joint structures and prosthetic configurations and the same intended use. So I believe that this would be a good predicate device to use. And then the 510K submission itself, it does have an application fee of $11,500, so that's something to keep in mind. And that would include the substantial equivalence discussion, a labeling of the device with instructions, warnings, cautions, and limitations. It would include all results from bench, animal, and clinical trials. And then also it would include the special controls outlined in the CFR. That includes things like electronic compatibility, battery performance, software verification, durability testing, and biocompatibility of the device with the skin in the locations that it meets the skin. And then a brief timeline for this device. So the research took about 2 years. That's all the bench research that was originally done. The IDE is approved after 30 days of submission, and then normal clinical trials of devices of this kind last about 3 years since they have a relatively small sample size. And then after the 510K is submitted, there is a 90-day review period. So in total, this would take about 5.5 years to go from research to market. And these are my references. Thank you for watching.